What's wrong with an incentive? Absolutely nothing, in my view. And I just want to make a few comments on 4 key points. What is an incentive? What's in it for me? What motivates people? And what do we mean by when we talk about a reward? So, what is an incentive? Well, I could think of 4 categories of potential incentives. One would be reimbursement, i.e. it cost me £25 to get here to this project. That was my train fare. Am I expected to pay for that, or is that going to be reimbursed? That's a question that young people involved with UK youth, they don't have money, so that's a very important question. So there's nothing wrong with that. A reward? Well, actually, I think saying thank you and well done and all those things is excellent. So I don't see any problem at all in rewarding people for their volunteering. But then a payment? No, that's a job for me. And a bribe? Maybe we shouldn't be using that word, but I think the word bribe does come into things certain times. You know, we'll do this on the basis you just might get something a bit further down the track. Can't promise you today, but at some point in the future. So, on the right hand, but on the left hand. And that's going to permeate this debate, I suspect. So what's in it for me? Well, I can think of numerous reasons why I and other people I've spoken to would want to get involved in volunteering. And these are all incentives, really. It is about self-worth and self-esteem. You know, I don't do things that make me feel rubbish. I do things and come back and do things because they make me feel okay and good about myself. Do they actually carry with it the prospect of some career progression? Well, I think if it's understood and properly balanced, then I think that's fine. This word entree is an important one in terms of lots of volunteering for young people. Young people queue up to volunteer at organisations like, I don't know, the BBC, ITV, Sky. Why do they do that? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? They want to get a job. They'll meet somebody, it'll be an entree into a world. Gifts, yeah, I've got kids who spent a lot of time hanging around rock and roll bands, getting involved in promotions, and they were promised a million and one things, and what did they get? A t-shirt. Not so good. Meeting friends is a big motivation factor for me, I think, with young people who are involved in it. The important thing for me, I think, is it has to be a win-win situation. You know, there's got to be a win on both sides in terms of satisfying what in effect may not be an employment contract, but it is a contract between whoever is offering the opportunity and the young person, in my case, or the person who takes it up. So what motivates people to get involved in volunteering? Well, it is, I think, interest. You know, I suspect that if we're honest, most people volunteer for things they're interested in, they're passionate about. There's also, I think, a high degree of volunteering that takes place where people believe they're doing something important. You know, and I think in some cases, particularly with young people, I worry sometimes about how governments, dare I say it, portray volunteering as doing something important when actually, you know, there is a question mark sometimes about it's just cheap labour. And if we don't be quite clear about what is important and what bit you're doing that's important, then I think there's leaves a lack of credibility and self-esteem. Affinity is something that interests me. The whole brand issue. Young people are motivated tremendously, many young people, by brands, and therefore it is highly likely. I think Virgin are very successful as a company in actually promoting their brand, getting young people to want to volunteer and be engaged with things that carry the Virgin brand within. And of course, probably the most important motivation for most people is actually making a difference. And you know, I quite like making a difference. I suspect we all do, because you feel a sense of self-worth and enjoyment and importance that comes out of that. You know, you have got something that you've contributed. You've made a difference. But I think there's a difference between the spontaneous involvement in terms of that motivation and something which is regular and planned. So I think it's quite easy to get people to do something short-term, spontaneous, but actually, is that going to be carried out over 6 months to a year? That's a different issue altogether. And finally, coming on to the whole subject of reward for volunteering. And I think this is an important issue, and I think it's one that we overlook at our peril. Now, certainly within UK Youth, we're very fortunate to have a strategic relationship with VE, who I guess you will all know about. And the big contribution that we make to VE is providing a method of accrediting the learning that young people gain through their volunteering activity and voluntary activity. I think there's an important distinction to be made there. So I think if you do something, and if there's an opportunity to formally have your your development, your personal development, or your learning development accredited, then I think that's a brilliant thing, and we should all be for that, rewarding. If it's about getting recognition to do with self-worth, so that actually could be that spontaneous, that was a great job you did there. Actually, let's go and buy you a meal tonight or something like that. Then I think that's absolutely brilliant. As opposed to, we'd better take volunteers out for a meal once every 6 months to make sure they're still willing to carry on volunteering. And I think that is a very an excellent side of reward that should be built into all volunteering. And as opposed to some kind of reward which is at some point distant in the future that just might be delivered if you're up to scratch good enough, if we like you at the end of 6 months. So all in all, I guess really this whole debate depends on which side of that particular continuum you start from and what your objectives are. And I think in all these things we need to have a fair degree of honesty, because I suspect from time to time there is a fair degree of hypocrisy that can creep in terms of people exhorting us all to volunteer as opposed to volunteering because it's something we want to make a personal commitment to. So there's the institutional volunteering as opposed to the personal volunteering. Which brought me to answer a quite difficult question actually, because my PA, who's fairly acerbic and also quite pointed in her comments, said to me, "So why are you going?" And I'm still thinking about that.